difficult to speak overly overtly about, but it's there's some signs there for sure, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, I think some of it we should keep on the down low, but at the same time, I just like I genuinely don't remember more disruption than at any time other than those mid two quarters of the first COVID year, 2020.
Definitely. I think that's basically the pattern of play. It's going to be increasingly difficult. There's no end game to this. I think it's just we're in the washing machine, and that's just how it's going to be, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
we are. I wonder how many different professions people from talent acquisition are currently moving into. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I come onto your poll in a minute. But
Yeah, conversation for another time. We should probably try and do that as a show when we have the chance. But I don't think it's just people leaving certain functions. It's like everybody, software
yeah,
development, marketing,
yeah.
sales, almost everything white collar. We also saw ChatGPT finally roll out their agent yesterday. And I think that's going to have a big impact simply because of the distribution that OpenAI have. It's a very widely used AI. Obviously, millions of people are going to use the agent. Now, whether it's any good or not, who knows? But it will probably eat into some sort of work. You know, enough people will be convinced by it to say, "Oh, maybe I don't need that intern, or maybe I don't need that sort of additional headcount in the team." Because it's there. So I'd be interested in doing that. Remember that thing I mentioned on the online community about who's using agentic AI and why is it disappointing? And a lot of people came in with really good feedback. We should bring exactly those commentators back after they've had a month of playing around with OpenAI Chat GPT agent, and then see how they feel. Because I'm not going to do it. I don't have the time to learn this. But if other people do, then we have the chance. All right, listen, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It is episode 319. Would you Adam and Eve it? I think I've actually people who follow the channel probably realize that the counting of the episodes is all over the shop. I think we've had 321 already. This is 319. I think we've probably generally done more. And the reason why we've had moving around all over the place is because I've been doing like a couple of midweek specials now. Due often because of need for topicality. Like obviously we're on a weekly schedule, but there's times when I need to just step in and talk about things. Also because the innovation rate is happening so fast in the technology space, I'm very keen to expose the brain food audience to new stuff that's coming out. Like you need to know about it, because I kind of I wouldn't say I'm delegating the research, but if we spread the eyeballs on these tools, somebody's going to take a close look at it and then be able to report back. So I think that's kind of a marketing intelligence thing. Anyway, 319, probably 322. Welcome to Brain Food Life. Go ahead on.
I was invited to join somebody's podcast recently, and as we were about to record, I said, when is this going to go live? He went, probably about September. I was like, mate, no. Let's record it the day that you want to put it live in that case, because whatever I say today is going to be nonsense in September.
Yeah, 100%. I think the era of like recording and posting podcasts that's coming to an end. It has to be much more topical and it has to be as close to real time as possible. Even if the production quality is a bit boxy, like it is for us, like it's not ideal. I mean, look at the lighting that you've got there, Adam. It's terrible. But who am I to complain? The bottom line is, we have to keep it as close to real time as possible, which is why Brainfood Live is always live. All right, listen, let's do some sound checks real quick. Want to make sure everyone here is okay. Folks who are watching this on Crowdcast, let me know whether the audio and visual is fine. We should be broadcasting this live on a number of LinkedIn's. Certainly my LinkedIn. We've got 60 odd attendees on my LinkedIn, would you believe it? If you're watching it on those LinkedIn's and Adam's LinkedIn as well, I think you're also promoting this. Do let me know whether you can hear and see me okay. Oh, by the way, I've just seen an old friend of mine react to my post, Andy Cox. How are you doing, sir? Wonderful to see you online and to give me a thumbs up. I hope you're well, mate. Look forward to a chance of catching up with you soon. I saw Osgood not too long ago. So why don't you and I get something in the diary, mate? Love to catch up with you, fella. All right. Let's, I think we're getting a few updates there. Thank you, Michael. Very good. Thank you, Ed. Very good. Very good. Okay. I think everyone can hear us okay. Let's get on with the show. Folks, Brainfood Live are always sponsored, always supported by some company that is saying, you know what, this conversation has to continue. Today, it's one of our new favorite sponsors because they've been very consistent with us all this year. It is, of course, Team Taylor, one of the most highly respected up and coming ATSs on the market. Team Taylor basically are coming out of Sweden. Great to see technology diffusion across the EU and they're entering different markets, particularly UK. Great to see some of the team in RecFest last week, and they are such a highly respected tool. I remember 4 years ago we did a survey on which is the ATS that you'd prefer to have if money was no object. Team Taylor were the only company at the time that didn't have a single negative review. Everyone, basically, there was a negative and positive. Team Taylor were the only one 100% record. Anyway, we have Ed Kenaway here to join us. He can come and talk to us about Team Taylor and what is new. So, Ed, I'm just going to invite you to come on. There should be a modal popping up on your screen. Just confirm yes to that, and we should be all good. Carrie Brophy, great to see you here as well. I think Sammy should be here also. Anna and Jesse here. We've got a wonderful panel today talking about AI and human centric. There he is, Ed. Wonderful to see you, sir.
Hi, nice to see you too.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Did I read accurately that you're in Amsterdam right now?
I am indeed. I'm just doing a little bit of working abroad for the weekend, so taking advantage of some hybrid flexibility there that Team Taylor affords me.
Wonderful city. Have I been to Amsterdam this year? Yes, I have, but I'm due to come back not too far away, so it's a great city to visit. Ed, wonderful to have you on the
Where
show.
haven't you been hung? I've seen I read your newsletters and I see it's from a different country every time. So you're here, there, and everywhere.
Do you know what, Ed? I'm actually going to be staying in London for like 2 months solid, and I'm actually delighted because I'm pretty beat up. Like traveling for some reason is so knackerizing. We need teleportation devices. But anyway, great to see you on the show, Ed. Why don't you sort of tell us a little about Team Taylor? Sort of what is it? Who should care about it? What's different about the product in the ATS market?
Sure. So just to briefly introduce myself, so I'm the head of the enterprise sales team in the UK. So I lead any of the business from a kind of 1,000 employees up to our largest. Now, a lot of you might have heard of Team Taylor over the years, but then you might typically think Team Taylor, SME, kind of coming hand in hand. And I'm here to try to dispel some of that. So we are now very much an enterprise ready solution with a number of advancements that we have. So we offer multi-branding and we have a kind of a best-in-class employer branding and content management suite to ensure that you are offering that top tier kind of candidate experience. And one of the reasons where we're really kind of uniquely positioned for multinational businesses is we support about 55 languages on the front end and about 35 on the back end. And we have 24-hour support chat, 24/5 in about 9 languages. So I think this is an interesting, based on the topic of today, AI first versus human centered. There's lots of things in the news at the moment about how all these big corporations are moving to AI chatbots. They fired their support staff, got terrible NPS, and now they're having to hire them back. So whilst I am here to talk a little bit about AI, Team Taylor at its core, it is human first with the support to make sure that you are getting that. You're not getting banging your head against AI when something goes wrong. Um, but yeah, I think I just wanted to quickly talk about a couple of things that are new. So you mentioned the OpenAI agent. I would love where Team Taylor is launching a co-pilot agent, and I would love for anybody, naysayers or optimists, to come and test it out as well. So anybody here, this is an open invite. When it's launched, please send me a message. I will send you a sandbox, break it, do whatever. Within the Team Taylor's AI functionality at the moment, we have screening criteria. So when you're doing hiring manager briefs and so on, you can create really comprehensive criteria with specific prompts relevant to that role to ensure that you're not creating false positives. And then it can stack rank those candidates at the top of the funnel. So for people that are seeing hundreds of applications in a day or a week, and you're losing tier one candidates in a sea of applications, you can now organize them and know that the people that you need to speak to first are going to be at the top of the pile. We have our own native AI interview transcriber with meeting insights. And with the Copilot agent, you're going to be able to prompt it to give feedback to the candidates, build reports based on prompts that you've given that can be comprehensible, that you can send to SLT or stakeholders. I've had to write a little list on my right-hand side because there's so much coming out at the moment. I couldn't keep track of it all. Also, like being able to AI candidate suggestion based on skills as well. So any candidates that can represent more than an 80% match that are known to you in your CRM can be suggested for new recs. So lots of cool stuff coming out, Hung. A lot of things that are being focused around AI. But I think the mantra that we're giving here is we want AI to amplify the human touch. So I went to a very interesting conference that maybe some of your listeners did too recently, House of Visionaries. It was in London. It's run by Bond Global. One of the big takeaways from that is the fastest declining role, I think they said, is the recruitment coordinator and all of these administrative tasks. And as you were saying before, the white collar work that's being challenged by AI. But the fastest growing role we're seeing is this obviously talent sourcer, but also this new conception of a talent engineer. And so at Team Taylor, I think we want to empower this idea of having a talent engineer, someone that's going to be there to optimize these systems so that you're enabling and empowering the team to just focus on sourcing and human connection. So yeah, AI to amplify the human touch is kind of what we're going for at the moment. And that's why we think we should be of interest to look at, hopefully. And hopefully your listeners agree.
Very good, Ed. There's actually going to be an article on Brainfood this Sunday, which is a bit academic, a bit wonky, but I want you to read it, Ed, because it's all about expertise and how AI is actually going to have basically two impacts on the world of work. And it kind of describes what you've just laid out in terms of product roadmap. Essentially, it's going to influence. It depends on what is going to be automated. If it's going to be routine tasks, it's going to produce this outcome. If it's complicated tasks, which you can automate complicated tasks, it's going to produce an alternative outcome. It's going to be a really interesting sort of study. I think people should pay attention to it. Anyway, Ed, wonderful to hear those things. I love the offer of the Copilot and the sandbox of it, folks. If you're like wanting to test out ATSs or any kind of agentic AI, and you're on the outside looking in, no reason why you can't go ahead and start playing with some of this stuff. Ed's going to share his LinkedIn into the chat stream there. Just connect with Ed and DM him and say, listen, put me on the wait list for that. Okay, good stuff, Ed. Stay with us on the call. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for coming on and telling us a bit about Team Taylor, man.
Thanks for having me, Hung. See you next time.
Great stuff. I think there's so much coming out of ATS landscape. It's very exciting. Recruiters are certainly going to be more well equipped than they ever have been before. So yeah, it's going to be good. All right, we've got to move on very quickly, Adam. Let's review the newsletter before we bring on our guest for this conversation.
Okay, we started the call, the meeting today. You and I were already talking when we went live about like the number of recruiters who are maybe going to be leaving talent acquisition. You did a poll on it. It was a really large number. 36% were considering leaving talent acquisition right now. You also did a poll on Sunday, which was how many people in your organization do you suspect are working another job at the same time? 26% said 5%, 10% said 10%. So, I think we all, like a lot of us think that a lot of people in our companies are being very enterprising, whether they're allowed to be or they're not. And I think that this is likely to be a growing trend.
Yeah, I think working two jobs remotely is illegal. We don't endorse it. I think you are basically being fraudulent. You're ripping off your employer if you haven't declared it. So don't do that. You're stealing time. But at the same time, I think it makes sense to try and like diversify your skill set as much as you can. And that involves basically setting up a company on the side and, trying to find a way to develop some connections, revenue streams that way. I think that's increasingly going to be the pattern. We're going to see a lot more solopreneur type operations going forward. And why not? It could give you a different type of work life experience. So yes, indeed. So
Well,
Okay.
the other thing is people in recruiting are actually very well placed to go and be solopreneurs and go and, do different things because we're so used to turning our hand to so many different tasks. Whereas in a lot of other
Mm,
professions, there may be a bit more one dimensional. Whereas, yeah, people in recruiting and talent acquisition um, have had to use their left and right brains consistently and adapt nonstop. So I think if anybody can do it, it's people in our space.
I agree. I think we are very flexible, very agile, very resilient. There's lots of positive characteristics inherent in the job. I think it's going to suit as well. We have weaknesses as well, though, and we need to backfill those ASAP. But yeah, we do plenty of strengths.
Right. I think jobs are getting decimated, and I think a lot of them are never going to come back. And there's an impending problem for humankind. I think that you think the same. Josh Bersin does not agree at all. He thinks that the peril that some people are forecasting because of AI is overhyped. And he's given four main kind of reasons for that in his essay. So the first is that AI hasn't replaced core skills such as empathy and creativity. I don't think it's replaced empathy necessarily, but I think it's replaced creativity. Um, Jobs adapt and evolve is true. He said that. And can AI keep up with that? Don't know. Human ingenuity remains central within organizations, and automation actually creates new layers of higher level work. A lot of that is, I do agree with a lot of that. I just don't think the 4 million truck drivers in the United States are going to be doing higher level work in huge numbers. So
Yeah,
I'm not, I don't know. I think that's a bit over optimistic, but it's a great counterbalance and good to hear him say that. And he's
agree.
a really smart guy.
Agree. And Burson, I think, had a very, this is one of his more important essays. So I have shared it in the chat stream. Do have a read of it. I think probably I'm a bit more of an alarmist than perhaps I should be. So a bit of a doom scroller online, etc. My main concern is basically AI, like we don't automatically transition to higher value work, quote unquote. I think that's a political conversation. We need to argue for that, and we need to basically have a strategy to secure it. Rather than just assume deployment of AI is going to immediately translate into higher value work for the people who remain. That isn't the case. This is part of the reason why, on one hand, we need to evangelize adoption of new technology, but on the other hand, understand that what we do with the excess time that we save, we have to take control of that. We have to basically be in charge of what we do with the time that we save. Keep what we kill. That's basically what it is. Stephen Rothberg, I do understand what you're saying, and I think that's a legitimate accusation. However, I think the argument is still sound, regardless of motivations. I think it is a very well argued case, and I would recommend people read it in any case. All right, give us another one, Adam.
Okay. Top of the market compensation, performance bonuses, sign on bonuses, performance driven raises, and top performers vastly outperforming everybody else. Welcome to jobs at Meta. Let's all get applying today. You can earn 100 million in stock, not in actual take home salary as has been reported, but in stock sign on bonuses. If you are like an AI guru, for example, this company is really kind of redefining um, what pay and reward should be. However, they are getting out. They are getting outbid by OpenAI and Cursor and Windsurf and some of these like AI, some of these large language model businesses. So there's crazy amounts going on in tech compensation, and I know a lot of people here are tech recruiters and shouldn't keep up to speed with what's going on.
Caveat on that, tech with AI tech. So the people that Levels FYI
Yeah.
basically published some information on this. Essentially, there's going to be like a concentration of extreme wealth by people who have got that 0.01% in demand talent. So if you are some person that literally is helping to build foundation models or write some of these new techniques, if you're like doing that deep research, man, you could literally write a blank check and almost someone's gonna pay you that cash. Meta obviously been incredibly aggressive. They've hired a huge, I forget, I mean, the amount of money they've spent in terms of payroll, just to acquire this latest tranche of AI heroes has got to be close to like billion quid. I mean, it's
Well,
crazy.
I mean,
Um,
they've hired like all stars team of talent sourcers in the last 6, 12 months as well, haven't they? To really having let loads of people go about 18 months ago.
but there's where we talk about the narrowing down. The volume's gone down, but the elite level that's remain is there. So it's a version of talent density. Anyway, let's move on to this. AI first versus human centered. We had actually Edward come out and say something. I think it's pretty human centered. AI is there to enable human beings, not replace them. What's your take on AI first versus human centered? We've seen a lot of companies say, look, we're not hiring anybody unless they're AI literate. We're not actually giving headcount unless you can prove AI cannot do this. That's how I'm defining AI first. What's your take on this, the sort of emerging philosophical difference that we're seeing in recruiting before we bring our wonderful guests on?
uh, Company CEOs are not really people from talent backgrounds. They're most likely to be accountants or engineers or left-brained pragmatic, people. You've got companies going out and actively leading the narrative around um, like the Shopify and Klarna type of stance, which is every job needs to be done by AI, and if it can't, that's only when it's passed that test. Will we hire a human? Behind the scenes, every company's doing this. There's not going to be very many, especially enterprise companies. Some industries will lag behind others, but in enterprise global businesses and in the tech space and professional services in particular, every organization is doing this. There's no way they're not. And if they're not, they're going to be uncompetitive. They're not going to be able to keep up and they're going to fail in the market. So, I mean, I'm like
Does AI
human
optimize?
centered.
Yeah. So, all right. So basically, we need to define what these things are, and also determine whether they are, in fact, distinct. I've kind of tried to push the idea that they are, but maybe they aren't. Let's invite some of our guests on that can help us talk about it. This, by the way, is an extension of a conversation I've been having over a period of time with the same group of people. And I think that we're going to add a few more folks to the room just to help us get a bit more body into this conversation. But let's bring on Carrie and Sammy in first, and then we see how we go. In fact, Anna, I can see Anna off there. Let's bring her on. She's going to be busy. Jesse should be around somewhere. Where is she? Ah, there's Carrie. Carrie, wonderful to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good indeed. We have Sammy here as well. Fantastic stuff. Why don't we introduce ourselves real quick? Carrie, do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. Carrie Brophy. I'm Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Marriott International, covering EMEA. I've worked in TA Tech for over 20 years now, starting on the vendor side, and I've done a variety of roles in-house and on the vendor side, landing at Marriott about a year and a half ago.
Fantastic stuff, Carrie. And Carrie, by the way, is very tech-centered, but Marriott is very human-centered business. So we wanted to get Carrie on to basically exemplify that position. We have Sami Abdo here as well. Sami, wonderful to see you. Who are you? What did you do, sir?
Yeah, so I'm People Technology Manager at Arm, and I'm taking up the enviable position of being AI first in this meeting. When I look at the comments on LinkedIn, might have a bit of a tough crowd, but yeah, essentially I own and manage our roadmap for our recruiting and onboarding technology. Similar to Carrie, I've had a background in systems and technology, so worked for a HR tech consultancy called Other. Also led a global team at TikTok where we had a set of internally developed systems that over 2,000 members of TA used. And prior to that, I've had a 10, 11 year career history in TA. So I'm not just a systems person, I've actually walk the walk in the shoes of TA.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Sammy. And Arm, by the way, are well into this sector. They are the company that manufactures into the manufacturing side of AI, so to say. So in many respects, being AI first is pretty much on brand. We have Anna Ott here as well. Anna, wonderful to see you. Can you introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do? Jesse, I'm inviting you now, my dear.
Hi, everyone. Anna, I work as a VP People for a VC, which means the company that employs me invests in startups, of which some have a .ai domain and of which some actually build AI products. That doesn't overlap. My job is to help all the portfolio companies with anything talent, so I advise them. I sometimes think my job is more like an organizational anthropologist, so I look at everyone and how they now adopt AI as Kool-Aid to founders. Interesting. What I see is probably also why Hung asked me to attend, because they look across 150 companies that are anything between 20 people AI native tiny team to thousands of people at Flixbus. That's my remit.
Yeah.
And I'm in Berlin, and I miss you, Hung. We should see each other more often, and Adam too.
We should. We should. I miss Berlin. I was about to go last week, but obviously clashed with Wreckfest. I couldn't do it, but I am overdue. I'll definitely be there this summer at some point. And we have Jesse Schofield here as well. Jesse, wonderful to see you. Who are you? What it is you do?
Thanks for having me as a guest this time, not only the co-host. I am founder of Stacked, the HR tech database you may or may not have seen. And prior to that, I was a director in strategy and projects for HR in some scale-ups in Berlin. And prior to that, I have almost 10 years experience in delivering transformation for the Australian government. So a bit of a colourful background, but I have a love of people and tech coming together and making workplaces better. So I'm interested for this discussion.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And folks, there's lots of people on screen. If you need to interrupt, just do it. Don't worry about waiting for me to instruct, okay? Let me just do a quick landscape overview as to this idea. AI first, there's a bunch of companies last 2 or 3 months have come out and said, we are AI first. So they've self-identified using this term. Look up Box, Aaron Levy, CEO, look up Zapier, look up Duolingo, as a couple of other companies, Shopify, I believe. They've just come out and said, look, we're AI first, folks, and this is how it works. A couple of things it means that I've kind of pulled together as a definition. Number one, they're going to just force the use of AI. So it's like we are mandating this to a large degree and we're KPIing it. So in other words, you're going to be assessed on your performance, on your utilization of AI. You don't have the choice to say, sorry, I'm not going to bother because it's going to be against your KPIs. Don't want to use it. You're on your way. Number two, they've also said things like, we're not going to hire anybody who can't use AI. So they're going to put that into the assessment of the candidates coming forward. So AI literacy, they're going to assess the AI literacy irrespective of role. Again, that's an effort to raise the literacy of the organization. Similar to how digitization worked 20 years or so ago. And thirdly, the third principle is that they kind of think that AI is going to do the job, and you need to demonstrate that the job cannot be done by AI before headcount is released. So it is a constraint on headcount. It's basically saying, you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Hiring Manager, you can't go ahead and just hire these 20 salespeople. You need to prove to me first that you can't put a system together and automate all of that stuff you say you need 20 people for. So those are the three principles of AI first that I identify as being the case. Human-centered, I'm seeing this coming from a lot of different types of companies, but the human-centered, the narrative around this, human beings in the loop. So that's a phrase that seems to synonymize with human-centered, meaning, all right, AI is going to be there, but there's no scenario where a human being is outside of the decision-making loop. The person is there, they're monitoring it. Basically, human beings have evaluation and executive authority over AI. It's never a situation where a machine just runs, AI makes decisions. Human being needs to say yes, no at some point. And number two, it's technology must be used to optimize human performance rather than replace human beings. So there's where I see the clear split. It's like, actually, no, you don't have to prove a human being can't do this because the AI is a tool that's going to help all of our human beings get better. So there's the alternative vision. where am I seeing this? I'm seeing it from a lot of vendors, unsurprisingly. So the vendors are very keen to say, hey, of course, it's not going to replace human beings, it's there to help you. But I'm also seeing it from some of the companies as well. Typically, older companies, more mature companies that have bigger populations basically, and also more B2C. So that's basically how I'm setting up that conversation. So I'll throw it open to everyone here. How clear are those definitions? Is it a real sort of emerging split? Where are we with the industry consensus about these two kind of family of ideas? Anybody?
I'm going to give a little reaction to it, Hung. I think something we spoke about with Sammy quite recently was, even if you're not going down the path of AI first and you do identify as being more human centered, I think you'd be foolish if you were going to say, oh, we're not bothering with AI, we're AI last. I think from my perspective, I kind of approach human centered as being, I have to design with people in mind. From my perspective, even though I'm a very technology heavy person in terms of my background and my passion, the number one value of Marriott as a hospitality company is to put people first. So I'm kind of trying to bring that into the change process all the way through. Maybe I'll throw to Sammy because I know he likes to have a little counter to that.
Yeah, I think it's much more nuanced than just one position or another. I agree largely with a lot of Carrie's thoughts. I think my definition of it is really similar to one of the points you raised, Hung. I think the first port of call when it comes to trying to solve a problem or solution, in my mind, should be technology, or it should be AI first, especially because I feel like in TA, scalability and reacting to change is something that we are just not good at. And our legacy solve for that has always been to look at changing resource, changing models, adjusting headcount or adjusting, RPO, embedded agency, whatever it may be. And I just don't think that is sustainable in the era that we're in, where TA budgets are being reduced, TA headcounts frozen, or they're getting smaller. There's this insatiable thirst to do more with less, and you've got AI-enabled candidates who are just flooding the market. So my take on it is, yes, of course, this isn't devaluing the role that people play, but you have to look to technology to solve some of these problems, because I just don't see a viable alternative.
I would also add that while I believe what Han said is true and also makes great headlines, I think it is too early to decide whether you want to be an AI native or a human-centered company, because this is the early days of that transformation. And I think some companies leapfrog it in too far. I don't think there's an advantage of being like the first mover, really, because there's a lot of roles where we don't know how AI will enhance, replace, or maybe even just don't affect them at all. I did the analysis across our job board the other week, and I looked at all the roles, and I asked Gen AI, like, how will AI take over any of the jobs that the portfolio is currently hiring for? And it's hard to say, and it's hard to predict, and I think it's too soon to take a decision. For a long time, we will be somewhere on the spectrum, and we'll probably do this department by department. And I think it's way more practical to think about, how does it transform tech today, product, maybe marketing and revenue driven functions, maybe finance and legal, not as fast. So I think it is department by department, depending on your business model. And then there will be teams where it's mostly AI first, but it's probably not like an organizational level, neither on an industry level. It's more like roles or department level. That's my take.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Anna, I think that really builds on what Adam and Hung were saying before about the rate of innovation and how many new products are coming out. Adam, when you were saying that about, you have to record a podcast live because the market's going to change next week. I think when I'm looking at, the rate that it takes in my very large organization to put a change in, I'm like, oh, that all looks great. What's going to be on the market in 6 months? So there's a sense of, hedging your bets a little bit in terms of what's coming around the corner.
Yeah, things move really fast. I think I find it hard to pick a side as well, just because I don't think there's a side. I think it's like you can be human-centered and you can be AI first at the same time. They can both coexist, and I think that's what we ultimately want. We want to utilize AI and think about best use cases and design it into our organizations to get the efficiency and the benefits that it can bring, where it can bring it benefits, because I don't think AI is the sole solution for everything. And then you design that with humans in mind, with humans in the loop, with you're going to have humans doing some things still because it makes more sense, and that's going to be, your human-centered design that we want to have in business. And so I think I don't see it as like a scale of like I'm here or I'm there. It's rather like both, and each organization is going to have its own perspective on how aggressive they are with their AI adoption, and that's maybe how AI first they are, or how fast they adopt, and how the risks they're willing to take. And then on the human side, it might be like, how much are we willing to replace our workforce with AI, and how do we do it, and how do we implement that into business, and how do we design humans into things? Do we actually put resources towards that? What is our mindset and our values, and how do we show that in our the way in which we work and show up to work? Is also human-centered for me. It's like how we actually operate with the people that we do have in the business as well. It's not just how we design processes, because a lot of workplaces today, they're not human-centered either. They're horrible, they're toxic, and we haven't got it right anyway. So I think it's also about how do we actually, separately to AI, how do we actually create better humans at work? How do we actually design organizations where we can be good humans to each other and still do good business? So for me, that's like they're kind of two different things. One's like a process thing, and one's a actual like human to human. How do we have relationships and work in these complex environments together? Yeah, that's my perspective.
I think
Isn't
what's
that like a cop? Isn't that a cop out though? I mean, we saw a few like I forget, was it the Zapier guy? Like some of the AI first people that busted out and said we're AI first. They all like end up rolling back through to backlash, because it's fair to say it's the more controversial position, and everyone hammered them online, and they all came back about 2 weeks later. Said, no, 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 well, we do definitely need human this, that, and the other. But fundamentally, if you're saying AI solves the problem, you're shrinking your company. Fundamentally, that's the idea. Now, I'm making no sort of comment whether that's good or bad, because the embedded imperative of companies is revenue maximization. And if you're going to maximize the revenue by getting rid of payroll, then that's part of the game. In which case, I think some of these companies may be just a bit more honest, even though I think some of them have kind of lost a bit of bottle because of the backlash they've come in. Whereas human-centered, it strikes me, you're moving away from raw capitalism, so to say. You're kind of saying, you know what, revenue maximization is important, but it's not the absolute sacrosanct. Like, there's more things involved in our business than just maximizing revenue. And if we ended up doing a few things that actually suboptimal for revenue, but it's better for our staff and better for our customers, or better for the society, or whatever, we're going to go ahead and do that. I think that's human centered. So anyway, I'm not saying you're copping out, Jesse, but I just wanted to basically, I think we can't be fence sitting on this one. This seems to me like quite profound. Adam, you're gonna correct me on this, so go ahead.
I wasn't saying anything. I was just listening.
No, fair enough. Okay. Anna Ott, I want to get your view as to your portfolio, because there's a bunch of companies that HV Capital have invested in. Now, what is your general sense as to where the pendulum swings amongst that lot? Whether they are moving to AI first position, where it is, AI first adoption, that's the first instinct, versus human centered, which is you're not your first instinct. You're actually thinking about the human organization before you implement.
Yeah, I currently vaguely look at the portfolio in three parts. There's like late stage companies, so think founder in year 8 or 7 of the company, maybe slow growth, some growth, probably some crazy years behind them. And for them, it is a remedy to complexity. So they actually go very much all in. And so it's not as obvious. You don't derive their appetite for adoption by the business model or the stage. It's mostly like, okay, I'm running a company of 400 people. This is a lot. I want to figure out how I can move things more efficiently. So there's some of those that I think that are doing a lot of the work, but not as visible. It's not like taking up much limelight, but I think there's some people who really figure out, like, how can we make this machine a bit more effective and efficient for everyone. Then there's a small group of newly joining companies who are what you could call AI native. So these are very small teams. When I onboard a company, I usually, the first thing I ask, like, where does the money go? Let's look at your hiring plan. And they have zero hiring plans, as in, we don't hire people. They just laugh at me. And obviously my job is very redundant because no one is hiring anymore in that bracket. So there's these, and there's a lot of those in the middle who are toying around with like a bit more safeguard. They look at like some teams where that will be definitely a lever. And I think, for example, tech is probably affected like in a detrimental way. Tech jobs decline, product jobs go up. That's what I see. So the CTO will be a different person than the CPO, and there will be a different dynamics. And I think it depends on also who's driving it and how much tech is in the company. If it's a consumer company where tech is some parts, but like the majority of the business converts to a deep tech company, an AI company, there's very different dynamics and conversations. So I did run a survey around the portfolio. I need to update it again, and I think it's a bit scattered. But I do see that some CEOs understand this is a way that I can make my company more effective, which is something they have long looked for. So this is definitely something that's interesting to watch. And I think they have the larger platforms to actually build interesting things that I can then cross-pollinate across the portfolio, which is basically my job. So I take what I learn from them and feed it across the portfolio. Long
Yeah,
answer. It's a mix, Hung. We don't know shit about these things.
yeah.
No one
Guys,
does. Every fund is
just
doing
on this.
something.
On this, we are just taking exaggerated positions, right? Just to try and better crystallize some of these like points. So of course there's caveats, of course there's nuance in all of this. We know it. But you mentioned something really interesting about sectoral differences. So it does strike me that technology businesses, technology first businesses might be more obviously AI first businesses. Interesting, all of the companies that busted out and self-identify this way are all technology first businesses. They're all sitting in front of computers. There's no retail staff amongst that. There's no branches. Not franchising. They're not moving pizzas anywhere. So yeah, maybe if you are just producing software, perhaps AI first makes sense to you. However, Sammy, you're not producing software. You do have lots of factories everywhere. You have people like frontline staff doing stuff. How does AI first sort of translate into that environment?
So I think, yeah, you're right. A lot of technology companies are obviously feeling empowered to lead the way and to be the front runners in that respect. I think for us, so ARM license and design kits. That's a simple way of describing what we do. And we believe that we are helping to power the AI industry. So our success in recent years has been partially linked to that. So externally, our sort of brand proposition is very heavily linked to AI. And therefore, internally, we have to try and reflect that as well. So that is partly why there is a real push to explore AI across almost every function, every team. It's something which is kind of baked into our long-term objectives. We have kind of metrics that link towards it, and it's nothing kind of dystopian. I think I've come here to represent the AI first position, but really what we're trying to achieve is exactly the same as everyone else. We're just trying to arrive at efficiencies. We're trying to give time back to people to do more value-added work. I think where we may be a little bit different is, we're trying to get everyone involved. For example, we had a people group conference a few weeks ago where we ran an AI hackathon. So we got all of the team members from the people team to essentially spend however the time was, about a couple of hours trying to come up with use cases, scenarios where AI could optimize or enhance the process. So I think for us, that's our angle. But I think even in retail, contact center spaces, hospitality, like, yes, you're going to need the people to be delivering the service to your customers, but there can still be a heavy element of AI that supports back office processes, whether it's recruiting or customer support. And for example, I used to work at BT. They would have a metric called propensity to call, and they would invest huge sums of money in trying to get customers to not call a contact center because that was the most expensive form of support. So this really is not that different from that. It's just an evolution on that journey. And I think whether you're a frontline business or not, sooner or later you are going to get on the train.
I'm going to jump onto that because you said it was previously, Sammy, that companies try to avoid costly operations, right? And I think that's true. Also, I find it funny that people are like, oh my God, businesses are asking us to justify why we need to hire someone. before we've thought of other things. It's always been the case that you should justify hiring. And I think, at least in my case, in my early career, you don't just go like, well, I'm going to hire someone. It's like, well, we've done this or we've done that, or this is why we need the person and this is what they're going to be working on. It's very like clear justification for hiring. And somewhere in this startup land, it kind of fell into, well, we're just going to throw people at the problem because money was cheap and we're just going to get people on board and we're not going to train them properly. We're just going to bring them into the business as quick as we can and that's going to solve all of our problems. So org design, operating model, like anything to do with like making these people, efficient in the business didn't really work. And now it's like, well, now we've got technology as an option, so we've got to like think about that. And I feel like it's just the natural evolution, like that what we've been through before. There was technology that took over jobs. You used to have people writing notes, hand notes, and you had typewriters, and you've got keyboards and all these things. Now we've got like AI note takers. Sure, a person is not now involved in as much of that anymore, but it is displacing jobs. But I think that business, like you said, Hung, it's there to it needs to make revenues, to make profit, it needs to be viable. And as businesses start to bring on technologies, companies have to compete. So I do think it is important that people understand like resources shouldn't just be like, we're just going to hire someone. And I think that's what business did. And then what we did was very not human-centered, which was lay people off. We're like, oh, well, it's inefficient now. We don't have enough money. You're all gone. Now you all have no jobs. You've got no stability. And that's been like happening all the time for the last, however long. And it's not human-centered at all. But we're doing it. And are we labeling these companies as not human-centered, or are we just like, oh, that's part of business. They needed to save money. That's justifiable. Like it feels like there's something missing here.
Strip the label off a business that claims human-centered. And no, your actions do not validate this.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very interesting. I think the self-identity of it, I guess, how does it inform the TA decision making? That's what I want to get to as well. Jesse, you make some really valid points as well. I wish we had the time to really dive into the idea of where human-centered come from. I think it came from design thinking, didn't it? I don't understand what design thinking is. Maybe I need to bring that sort of as a topic as well. But yes, actions don't necessarily reflect the rhetoric. How does it cascade down to TA decision making, do you think, guys? So let's compare this as a scenario. AI first CEO stepping up and saying, right, this is it. And then we have a human-centered CEO saying, this is how we're going to do it. How does that influence the same TA person that suddenly is operating under those conditions, or does it at all? I mean, is it all just rhetorical? Carrie, let's go with you on this to kick off.
So I think if I'm considering how that sort of comes down from the top, I think if you're in a company where your value is put people first but embrace change, which is sort of where we are, I think when you're designing, you're thinking very much about the candidate experience, possibly slightly more than you're thinking about how can we do this faster. So we've got a really good time to fill. It's super healthy, but we want to think about the candidate experience. So where are the touch points where we can make them feel like they are speaking to a person, because we're a people business. That's important. So I think sort of where we're looking at it is all of the specific points where you need to be really human-centered, interview and decision-making, because AI is never going to be able to, well, I'll caveat this, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think AI is going to be able to persuade somebody to join an organization. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. And guys, I totally forgot, by the way, well, let's look at the time. We're flying through this. Obviously, this is a conversation that needs to continue, but Brainfood Live does come off air in about 15 minutes, so we can't sort of be on air forever. Let's not make sure that we are a kind of a bottleneck for this conversation, folks. If you are interested in continuing this chat, which I think you should be, make sure you connect with everyone else who's joining this call. Way to do this, very straightforward. Grab your LinkedIn URL, just share it in the chat stream, and then connect with everyone else who's done the same. Do this. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, just share your LinkedIn into the comment thread and connect with everyone else who's done the same there. I mean, worst case scenario, you're going to walk away from this call with 10, 15, 20, however many new contacts that care about this distinction. Okay, where do we go from here, folks? Let's talk about sort of the sort of adoption of new technology. let's say that's the lens. I'm going to buy some new tech. It could be I unlock a new feature from a product. I'm coming in from an AI first perspective. I'm presuming I'm just charging forward with like lower due diligence than human centered. Is that a fair characterization? Just going to try it and see, and then human centered would probably put a bit more of an RFP against it.
My
Is that
feeling
fair?
is, yeah, my feeling is AI native would just build their own stuff and human centered would buy stuff. So I think if I were to be an HR tech company, for example, and I do AI, it might be easier actually to sell someone who's rather like human centered but wants to do AI enhanced, which would be somewhere in the middle. And I would assume that a pure AI native company would just build the whole things themselves and they don't buy software. So I think there's like a bit of a autonomy thing going on there. Just a
I think
hypothesis.
actually there's probably more diligence, even if you're a tech first AI company, than human centered, if that's how we're labeling it. Because you have got to be, of course, incredibly cognizant of regional regulations. You can't just go in and put something in. It is a little bit easier depending on what region you're based in. So I know your previous question, Hung, you were talking about companies that had led from the front in terms of communicating their position on AI. A really good example for people to look at, if you want to look at a company that's being quite aggressive, is Coinbase. Their CPO posted something a few months ago, and they were really forward about how they plan on using AI. And their statement is essentially, if you feel like AI is going to give you a platform and an opportunity to showcase your talents as part of this process, then this is going to be the right one for you. Because they're adopting screening, like AI screening, as a first stage. And their justification for that is, well, if we have 500 people apply, all 500 have an equitable shot at putting their best foot forward instead of just the first 10, 20% or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think if you're looking for a front runner to kind of mirror, then it would be a Coinbase. I forgot what your question was, Hong. Sorry, because I had to go down that point. What was it? Oh, diligence. Yeah, I think you've got to be incredibly diligent. You can't just take a punt. And actually, I would say this year is not the year to invest. Arguably, next year might not be either, because you're seeing the first wave of agents via HR tech vendors. They will not be perfect. They'll need to be optimized. There won't be a great case study for all of them. So I think if you can hold off, have a wait and see approach going into next year, then I think you'll be perfectly poised to make the right investment decisions.
That's Carrie's position, wasn't it? Right at the get-go, where you're talking about like the rate of iteration on the product side is so fast that if you dive feet first now, actually, what happens if you end up buying a product that's like a B rate, maybe A rate in 2025, but 2026 it's an also ran product. It's like, okay, that's probably not a good idea. So I don't know. I mean, when is the right time to buy? I don't think the there's ever going to plateau. Like the development's ever going to plateau. That's the thing. So it's hard to ever like throw a dart at a moving board. I wonder how whether anybody's got any thoughts on that, whether in the comments or on the panel. Go ahead, Carrie.
I think when you're talking to vendors, you need to really dig into their roadmap and look at who they're working with, how open they are to partnerships. That's really important. If they're like, we're doing this and we'll do our next release in a year, that's probably a bit more of a red flag to say they're not as committed to innovation. So I think that's quite an important thing to look at if you are at a point where you want to invest, or look at parts of your process that you could bring in a single piece of tech, like interview scheduling is one. I think it's probably the most mature in our market and one of the most impactful. So that can be a good place to look at making like more of a micro investment and getting a good result from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesse, let's bring you on this because you're obviously running a tech startup that does like vendor assessment, right? So
I mean,
is there a way where you can kind of track like the product iteration rate of the companies that are on Stacked?
So actually, there's something that I'm working on right now that is going to enable people who partner with me to basically log their features that they're putting out. So you can actually if you go in there, you can see the company, see like how often have they shipped features, what are those features, and potentially also or look at whether they can do future roadmap stuff as well, attached to their kind of product profile. So as you're searching, you can also see the rate at which they, ship things and do things. But what's interesting, I think, is what people actually search for. So the database itself, it's got 300 and something products in it across 29 categories. It's a global database for small to medium sized business. And the most searched things in the database are for companies around the 200 to 500 mark. It's the most filtered. And then you have ATS and core HR. So like really like the foundational systems of what is like filtered for the most and searching for the most. And then shortly after that comes free plans. So things that are free, people looking for free things. AI operations, sourcing and talent management, and AI features. So they're the things that people are looking for the most this year in the system when it comes to tech, which is, I think, of the time. People are looking into AI operations, they're searching around to like see what's on the market. They're also doing research. But then you have all your core systems that people are more likely to probably want to have a look at if they're a new business or they're potentially looking at their foundations. And then you have performance and things in that space where I think the companies are starting to go, well, okay, this is what we're focused on now. It's not about, employee experience anymore. It's about, are you performing and how we're measuring performance and are you delivering? And so it is matching kind of what's going on in the market. But it is interesting to see that those are the core things that people are looking at, like all the most searched for and filtered things in the database. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that that's what's going on. But whether or not people are buying is another question, right? I think the vendors that I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of vendors over the last year, and they all say the biggest challenge, especially the AI ones, are the compliance questions, but also like just willingness to buy, like readiness to buy. That they don't have the budget or they don't have the ability to say yes, or they're not ready themselves to actually buy the tech because their foundations aren't there. So it is quite interesting. There is a lot of tech out there. Yes, Adam, we would love to have you listed. We'll talk.
Mate, I thought you'd already be all over it, Adam. What are you doing? No, very interesting. Go ahead, Ed.
No, I just wanted to add because I had a conversation with the VP people of a larger company, and they were very eager to buy AI HR tech, but they also spend like 2 or 3 months to clean up all their data. So I think there's an appetite, and people are browsing and looking and probably not deciding, but they also need to like prepare organizations and think about like where it's best placed and how do we. So it's a project, and I think it's like impulse shopping. You shouldn't just go there and buy a fancy tool before you have understood if you really need it and what kind of use case you have. And then obviously comes compliance, specifically in Germany. There's a lot of those things that you're probably cautious about, which is all great. I think we will have a lot of fun conversations about tooling next year, probably not this year yet.
I feel positive about this because the fact that we're not like just jumping up straight in, there is friction, there is reasons to pause, even if they may not be like massively optimistic reasons, like we're too busy or there's too much stuff, we can't make a decision. At the end of the day, we're going to get some like weird outliers, typically small companies that are going to do radical experiments. They're going to prove the case. That's brilliant. But then over time, it's going to bleed into that middle market in a very traditional way of technology adoption. Technology adoption is always this way. You get the small companies that don't have the compliance risk of greater risk appetite. They're just going to give it a shot, prove the case. More mature companies can then make a safer decision going through the tracks. Right now, for instance, we probably think that interview AI note taking is as of course. Like, why would you not have this feature? But I remember like 2-3 years ago, speaking to some of the point vendors there, that was actually one of the key problems with people saying, yeah, but I'm not sure anybody would like to be recorded. But it took basically a year and a half, 2 years of radical early adopters to break through that and execute the cultural change. So yeah, going to be very interesting. Okay, folks, listen, we're accelerating towards the end of this conversation. So obviously we're not going to cover everything we need. We're going to have to do a part 2 on this. I think it's an ongoing conversation. Let's revisit AI versus human-centered 6 months down the track and see whether we have more companies stepping up and self-identifying one or the other, and indeed how that affects decision-making. Might even affect sort of things like employer branding, folks. Like people may start making decisions saying, you know what, do I want to work for a human-centered company that has these set of like values, or do I want to work for an AI first company that has these set of values? It's going to be one of these things, different strokes for different folks. Okay, that's it. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. Let's thank our wonderful guests for coming on. Carrie Brophy, wonderful to see you. Hopefully, we'll catch up soon. Sam, wonderful to see you as well. Thanks for coming on and taking the position. And I will be in Berlin shortly enough. In fact, Jesse, I will be in Berlin. You're both in Berlin. So I'll see you guys shortly. I'll make an excuse to come. Yeah, thanks for joining and giving us your wisdom and insight. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week. We have a double header. Why? Because one of our Brainfood lives screwed up due to my sort of failure to get the key person on screen. So David Head, CEO of Endorsed, is going to be on screen on Tuesday. This is for our US friends, optimized for US time, 10 o'clock Pacific time. David Head is going to come on and we're going to live demo Endorsed. What is this product? He reckons it's an AI recruiter. Okay, let's see it. We're going to do a live demo. If you've got any questions for David, do ask away on there. And on Friday, we have a wonderful opportunity. It's a one-on-one show. Why? Because we are talking about strategic workforce planning in the era of the AI agent. Very interesting. We've got one-on-one, no one other than Dave Wilkins, who's the head of product and head of strategy at Talent Neuron. He's coming on and he's going to tell us about, okay, how do you actually do workforce planning when we've got like AI agents like being rolled out? How do we calculate the value they can add to the human workforce? Are they included in the workforce planning? Should they be? That's the question we're going to be asking. Make sure you follow the channel, folks. We'll keep you updated on both of those shows. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a very good weekend. That was all right, wasn't it? A bit. We needed more to talk about. There's just way too much to talk about there, really, wasn't there?
That was a really great show. It was terrific to hear everybody's insights, especially such a great group of people coming from like slightly different angles on this on that topic. I do firmly believe that it's not but a binary thing. You're not AI first or human centered. Nobody's going to be entirely one or the other, and the balance is going to end up becoming determined by logic.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I'm exaggerating the case to try and crystallize things, but I might have just confused it by being that by being a bit this way. But I can tell you now, I'm neither AI first or human centered. I'm simply incompetent. Like my failure to adopt AI is really causing my human centered business to collapse. It's like I'm knackered because I'm totally overstretched. So no question, I need to get with the programming one way or the other. Made some progress with Airtable recently, and that may be my go-to tool of choice. And I need to automate a bunch of shit through that, and hopefully I can get some of my time back. Anyway, Usyk Dubois, what do you reckon?
Ooh, before I answer that question, did you see Hamza Shiraz last week?
No, but I understood he was awesome.
He is a banger. That is incredible what he did. It was unbelievable. Hamza Shiraz is the new super middleweight world champion. I think he's going to beat Canelo and bring it all back to the UK.
I mean, Canelo's fucking. He's old, but he looks like the new prospect for the UK, doesn't he? So good
he's 20,
to see.
He's 26. Hamza Shiraz. Yeah, he's 26. He's Dubois. I think I don't remember a better heavyweight boxer than in my lifetime than Alexander Usyk, but Daniel Dubois is the young lion in the camp, and his time is coming. Don't know. He's a lot better than he was the first time round. When was that? 3 years ago. I mean, he should have won that. He knocked him down. It wasn't a low blow. He knocked him down and he didn't get up. He would have got up had the ref not stopped the fight. But yeah, Dubois. Dubois is already a world champion, right? So, but this is unified.
Yeah,
so it's undisputed.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. I think Pete Usyk gets Dubois out of there in three rounds, no doubt. But Usyk is old now. I mean, not he is old. And
38, 39?
Yeah, that's all for a heavy, especially for a little heavy. So he's relying a little bit on the agility and all this type of stuff. And I think Dubois will just muscle him out. Even though I don't rate Dubois, I just don't. I think the career trajectory is just wrong.
You saw what he did to AJ, right?
Yeah, but AJ's just a walking building. He's always been blown up. I mean, I don't rate him at all. I never have.
You saw what he did to the Croatian guy. He dismantled him in 3 rounds or something as well.
Is this Hergovic or whatever?
Yeah, he dismantled Hergovic.
No, but Hergovic is so easy to hit, though. It's like he's
He's an
fundamentally
Olympic gold champion or Olympic gold medalist or silver medalist.
totally beatable. I think Dubois is far worse a fighter historically than Usyk. Totally different level. It's like Division Two versus Premier League champions. But Usyk's getting on. There's going to be a
I know,
point
but
where you're too old for it. So
I'm pretty sure Frank Bruno was a world champion, right? So I think Dubois is going to be a world champion of the Frank Bruno style.
He is Frank Bruno Mark II, basically limited, body beautiful, walking building, can hit hard. Who knows?
No,
Anyway, good luck, Daniel
he is a
Dubois.
smasher. He is a smasher.
Yeah,
He's
good
got a
luck, Daniel
huge
Dubois.
punch.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Have a good weekend,
Cheers.
mate.
You too. Bye.